global carrier-neutral co-location provider. So I want to talk to you, number one, co-location, a little bit of question and answer in a bit. Why does that matter? Why is it important? Not only to the customer, but particularly to you as a seller. And then I want to talk a little bit about Equinix in particular, about why do we matter to your customers, and of equal importance to you guys and gals as sellers. So, colo, does it ever come up in your sales engagements? A lot, a little bit?
My most recent one was a financial company in Hawaii needed space off the island. So we got the circuits and co-location in Seattle. It worked out really well.
Okay, how about you? Ever come up?
Yeah, we're both a consumer and a seller of co-location.
Okay.
We've got an insurance company that right now is moving all their stuff to data centers.
Okay. So, this is, you're probably already going to know this, but I think about it this way. Why is it important? Well, as you know, what's the most important thing you can do for yourself in terms of helping the business? It's about controlling the customer, to the degree that's possible, right? Because you want to be in a position not only to make the immediate sale at hand, but to make the next sale, and the next sale after that. So here's a different way of looking at it. If you were a gardener, right, and you wanted to get a control of a plant, you could grab the branches or leaves, or I got a better idea, what about to grab the root? Because if you grab the root, you really control that thing, right? So in the world of IT, that data center, that's the root. And if you can grab the root, well, you can control the fruit, so that's a good thing. So that kind of sets the stage. Let me talk a little bit about Equinix. Not a lot, but I'm going to tell you this. I could tell you a lot about Equinix, but of all the stuff I can tell you, there's only one thing that you need to remember, and that's this: think differently. That's a coin with two sides. Customers would be wise to think about data center differently in terms of what it can do for their organization. And I'm talking about co-location specifically. And you as a seller can also benefit by thinking about it differently. Here's what I mean. So a little bit of background on Equinix, right? The name, where does it come from? What does it mean? Equinix, equal internet exchange. This is going to be relevant in a second here. But the company was founded in the late 1990s, early days of the internet, when it was very inefficient, carrying was terrible, specifically to provide a set of geographically distributed neutral facilities where all the carriers could feel comfortable coming together to peer their networks. So we started out as a service provider to the carrier community. That's still, to this day, a 26% plus share of our business. So why does that matter? So what it matters from Equinix is, look, 90% of the world's peering, internet peering, happens in an Equinix facility. So we've got more carriers in these facilities than any other colo provider by far, over 1,000, to include 100% of the tier ones. That's number one. Number two, and it's, that's theme, that's all people are talking about now is cloud, the rise of cloud. If you're a cloud provider, where would you deploy your services? I tell you where I would put them. I'd put them at the places where the networks happen to be most dense, because they need to gain access in as efficient a manner as possible to those networks, because it's through those networks that they deliver the service at a reasonable quality to the end user, right? So a natural byproduct of the cloud, of the network density that we have in our facilities, is cloud density. So over 450 different cloud providers, to include all of the hyperscalers we've heard talked about here: Microsoft Azure, AWS, Google Cloud, the new Cisco Intercloud, IBM SoftLayer, on down the line, 450 deep. Over 450 different cloud providers, many of them in the portfolio for Intelisys. So now let's tunnel forward back to this idea: think differently. I think in your conversations with your customers, you want to tell your customers to think about the data center differently, to think about co-location differently. For whatever reasons, right, wrong, or indifferent, they think about it in very simple terms. I don't know, it's a specialized form of real estate, it's where there's lots of redundant power and generators and cooling, and it's where my servers go. Yeah, it is, but that's where it only begins. Customers would be wise to say, no. It can be that, but it also should be a strategic foundation of my overall IT architecture that enables me to do a lot of different things from a networking perspective, from a cloud perspective. So here's the deal: if your customer lands in some data center where, I don't know, typically there's one or two, some small number of carriers available. What does it enable you to do from a network? Not much. There's not a lot of choice. But if your customer lands in a place like Equinix where there's over 1,000 different carriers to choose from, what does that then enable them to do from a network perspective? A lot of creative things. Number one. Number two, on the cloud side of the equation, right? Here's my data center, and here are all the cloud providers. Now the customer, if they're trying to, the way this is all going to play out in the cloud space is it's not going to all go to public cloud. There's always going to be some portion that stays private. So customers will have hybrid deployments where they keep some stuff private and other stuff public, and they need to make those two inter-network. So they do that today by way of the internet. Yeah, with no security, with limitations in throughput, with vagaries in performance, and at high bandwidths and high cost. Because of the data transfer. What we're saying is no, if you co-locate with Equinix, you can connect directly into any and all of those cloud providers directly. Full security, 2 milliseconds or less of latency, high bandwidth, low cost, and you can mix and match providers however you want. So again, the data center, if you're thinking about differently, becomes an enabler for the cloud strategy. That's why it matters to the customer. For you as a seller, I want you to think about this. If your customer goes out and procures colo from some vendor where there's only 2 or 3, 4, some limited number of network options that you can, that's where the real money is. It's not just the data center, but it's the networks that are feeding in and out of it. And if you take your customer instead and you put them in a facility like Equinix, where you've got 1,000 different cards to play, 1,000 different carriers, more options, you're going to have a much higher probability of coming up with the winning combination, the winning hand that wins that WAN business where the money really is, number one. And oh, by the way, we talk about the cloud side, right? Direct connectivity to all the top tier cloud providers. What is that? That's a direct on-ramp to the cloud. Who do you suppose can position themselves as the traffic cop on that on-ramp, bringing this, that, or the other cloud provider in to meet your customer and solve? You do. In exchange for an agent fee, of course, through Intelisys. And it's not just the hyperscaler stuff, it's the voice services, all these other cloud hosted services, many of which, even inside the Intelisys portfolio are hosted inside of Equinix data centers. So you land your customer here, makes it easier to earn money on the network side because you got more options, number one. And over here on the cloud side, you're in layup position. Hey, you want to try that hosted service over there? It's just a cross connect away. You can be plugged into that thing tomorrow if you want. $350, for a cross connect, fully secure, full QoS, all of that. So that's my story. It's the magic money multiplication machine, right?
Did you guys direct and channel?
Yeah, and fully integrated. So that's a great question. So if you bring us an opportunity to register through Intelisys, it'll get assigned out to one of our field account managers, and they're going to make full commission. They're not taking a haircut because they're working with a partner. So it's all